Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our weekly Torah learning of spreading more light into the world. We always like to start off with giving because how we give, that's how Hashem will give to us. So let's all give generously so Hashem can and will give us generously. So I'm going to put some coins in the tzedakah box. Tonight, I am dedicating this class. It was sponsored, so thank you for all the sponsors who sponsored tonight's class, the co-sponsors. I'm not going to go with everyone's name, but you all know who you are. Today's yahrzeit was Sima Bas Mordechai HaKohen, a very special person on the board of Ten Yad organization. She was book smart, street smart, witty, intelligent, a great friend to many, and whatever else you want to add. And an incredible mom, a daughter, a sister, and a grandmother as well. And she personally was my dear friend, someone that I really respected and admired. So thank you for the dedication to Sima. She should have, they say, like a lichtike Gan Eden, which means light up there, which I'm sure she is, and we should see her so soon with the coming of Mashiach. And sending my love to her family and to her friends and to all her loved ones. We're also dedicating this class to Rochel Flikshtein, who passed away last week at 102. She is my uncle's mom and a mother to many, a grandmother to many. Everyone loved her. Everyone called her Bubby Rochel. She was someone that I was personally so close to. So thank you for that sponsorship. We really appreciate it. We're also dedicating this class in merit for the complete refuah shalema of Hannah Yenta Rivka Bas Shendel, Hannah Bela Bas Devora, Yosef ben Devora Leah, Razel Bas Hadas, Rafal Chaim Meir ben Sima Chasha, Devora Leah Bas Yafa Liba, Moshe Yehuda ben Golda, and everyone who needs a refuah shalema, we're including them. We're dedicating this class to all the IDF tzaddikim who are serving in Israel right now, and safety for all the Jews around the whole world. My dear cousin just went into Rafah, so we're gonna have him in mind. If everyone could write his name down, if you can, and keep him in your prayers, and everyone in your prayers. Rafael ben Devorah Leah, Shalom Dober ben Basya Peril, and we're including everyone in this. I also do this class in memory of my dear grandmother, Rivka Dina Bas Yosef Yehuda. I hope you're proud. My great uncle, Chaim Dober ben Betzalel. To save a life is saving a world, and he saved many in the Soviet Union. And my grandmother, who passed away this year, Bela Bas Betzalel. So we are going to start off with Tehillim because it's really important for the hostages to come home, for the safety of all our brothers and sisters around the world and everyone serving in the IDF. They should be kept safe, and Hashem should protect everyone. And we have the power to pray on their behalf, and it really makes a difference. And they thank us. Tzedakah is protection. And the Tzemach Tzedek said, if we only knew what Tehillim can do, we would say it day and night. So let's do it tonight together. We're going to say Psalm Chaf, which is Kapitel Chaf. Lama tseach mizmar leDavid, yancha Adonai b'yam tzara, yisagevcha shem elehei akav yishlach azracha mikaidesh, umitzian yisadecha yiskar kol min chaisecha ve'elafcha yidash nesela, yitein lacha chovavevcha v'chol atavcha yimalei, neranena b'shuasecha u'shem Eloheinu nidgol yimalei Adonai kol mishalasecha. Ata yadaiti ki haishia Adonai mishichai, Yanehu mishmei kachai bigurai seisha yiminai. Ela barecha ve'ela vasusim ba'anachnu b'shem Adonai Eloheinu naskir. Hey makaru v'nafalu ba'anachnu kamnu v'nisaydad. Adonai hashia melech yanenu b'yam karenu. All the hostages should return immediately in whole, and we should see them with our own eyes, and we should see the miracles. So tonight's class, I'm so excited to introduce to you Rochel Flikshtein. I don't know if I pronounced that right.
Flikshtein, yeah, you got it.
Flikshtein. Thank you. It was a little bit of a tongue twister. Flikshtein. We practiced this before, but I apologize. I'm not a professional at this just yet.
No worries at all. No worries.
We are so excited to have her with us. And let me just tell you how we got her on this program. Last year, I was very blessed. I was lucky to be invited to the JLI in Crown Heights. It's Shabbat in the Heights. It's an amazing, amazing Shabbat. I really encourage anyone and anyone who can come next year. They have retreats as well. JLI is a Jewish Learning Institute. It's beyond. I love their stuff. I follow them on Facebook, and I really am inspired by their work. And I brought a couple friend. They came for Shabbat to join in, and they loved it as well. And they have a Malava Malka. So basically, it's a packed weekend where you get a tour of Crown Heights. You get to hear speakers. You get to go to 770. You get to go to the Rebbe's room. You get to go to the library of where all the books are kept from all the previous and our Rebbe. There a lot of their personal belongings are there, like holy, their bechers, there's candlesticks. There's a lot of different exciting items that you can see. It's pretty fascinating, years and years old. And it's literally right here. And it was a magical weekend for me. I didn't join everything, but I joined a lot of it. And they have a Malava Malka after Shabbat. And it was also magical. You hear Abdallah, and then they have an incredible spread of food. I mean, the food is amazing, Jews and food. But literally breakfast, lunch, dinner, garden parties. It's amazing. So if you want to know more about it, reach out to me. I can connect you. No, I do not work for JLI, but I am inspired by them. And I hear this incredible couple. They come up to speak, and my jaw was just open the whole time. And I was just like, wow, couldn't believe my ears, what I was hearing. Like, I just couldn't believe that the story that they were saying, where they came from, their background. So I know no one's going to believe this, but I'm a little shy. And I went over to Rochel after, and I was like, I'm blown away by your story. It was so amazing. Would you consider speaking on our Torah class? And I told her about our YouTube channel. She got my information. I got hers. We connected, and I'm sure she checked out some of our channel, and it was just so nice. She said yes before even knowing what it was, which I was so thankful and grateful. And we were in touch for a long time, and we were finally able. It's all about timing, and this was the right time for it to happen. And she is going to share with us her incredible story and journey with us tonight. It's beyond. And if anyone has any questions, please message me directly. And Rochel, I want to welcome you to our weekly class. We're honored and humbled that you are the Schluach of the week. If you can please tell us a little bit about yourself and where your story started. So thank you.
Thank you. And I feel honored to be here with all of you. So thank you for inviting me to be the Shlucha of the week. It's a real privilege to be here and see some familiar faces as well. So thank you to friends for coming on as well. My name is Rochel Flikshtein, and I am a Shlucha in Wilmington, Delaware. Baruch Hashem, we've been here for almost 14 years. This Chai Elul, this coming August, will be 14 years that we've been doing our work here in Delaware. And actually, my story begins in Delaware. This is also where I was born. I was born to a pretty ordinary family, grew up in like a secular but more traditional home. And I'll share my screen with you so you could see a picture of my family. This is me and my two brothers, my dad and my mom. And I'm the little girl there. So I have an older brother who's 2 years older than me and a younger brother 2 years younger than me. And I'm in the middle. And, we're pretty, like, everything was typical on the holidays, like Hanukkah. We'd light the menorah together. And we were more traditional. We would have Shabbat dinner together with, the Friday night Kiddush, and we would sing the Hamotzi Lechem Min Haaretz song. We give thanks to God for bread, and we'd have our challah that we would get from our preschool. We went to the Jewish community preschool. So I grew up with a very strong Jewish identity from the time that I was very young. And my birthday's Chaf Kislev, just before Hanukkah. So Hanukkah was like right from the time that I came home from the hospital. I have a picture of me being a baby and my parents lighting the menorah. And so this is kind of how we grew. Now, one thing that was unique about my parents is they decided that from the time that we would go to school, we would go to a Jewish day school. My father grew up in Buffalo and also came from more of a conservative, traditional background. And his parents made a point to send him to Hebrew school, that he should really learn about Judaism. So my father would sit for maybe 3 days a week for hours after school. And he grew so resentful looking out the window, watching all of his friends playing ball. And here he is stuck in school for extra hours because he's Jewish. So by the time he became bar mitzvah, he said, this is my graduation ceremony in addition to my bar mitzvah celebration. And he really checked out and he wanted nothing to do with Judaism. He was very fortunate that he went to college at University of Buffalo, and one of the professors there was a Chabad rabbi, Rabbi Gurari, and a friend of his convinced him to take a Talmudic studies class with this rabbi, and it re-sparked his interest in Judaism. He realized that his 13-year-old self really didn't understand very much about Judaism, and in his adulthood, he hoped that he would get a deeper connection. And after losing his father at a young age of 24, it just became something more embedded in him. So by the time he had his own children, about a decade later, he said, him and my mother together decided, we're going to get our Jewish education and our secular education all in one day, all in the day school, regular day school, so that we don't have the same resentment for our Judaism, but we come to love it. Now, we'd go to our school and, I said my parents were pretty traditional, but there were a lot of things they didn't know. And they were incredible about incorporating the things that we were learning in school into the home. So for example, they knew about Hanukkah, they knew about Rosh Hashanah, we dipped the apple in the honey, of course, we had off from school, we went to synagogue. Then was Yom Kippur, we fasted on Yom Kippur. Okay, then came Sukkot. And we came home and we're like, we need to get a sukkah and we need a lulav and an etrog. So my parents are like, where are we going to get one of those from? So this is where Chabad enters in. Now, when my parents moved to Delaware, that same rabbi that my father knew had run into Rabbi Vogel in New York in 770, and he heard that he's in Delaware, and he said, I have a young man moving to Delaware for residency, my father at the time, and connected them from the very start. So this is Rabbi Vogel, and that's me actually in front of the shofar factory he was running. You see that little girl in pink? That's me when I was maybe 5 years old or so, and Rabbi Vogel named me when I was a baby. And this is Oria, who I would pull into dancing with me at the Purim party, also at the Jewish Community Center here. And so my parents would make sure to bring us to Chabad for these enriching experiences growing up. And I had no clue what Chabad was, that was for sure. But I knew that Rabbi Vogel and Oria were really amazing, special people. They were the rabbi and the rebbitzin of our community. And they really became like family over time. So when my father and mother needed a sukkah, who were the people that they called was none other than the Vogels. And they would help us get a sukkah and a lulav and an esrog. And one thing that was always something that we went to the Vogels for was something called Simchas Torah. Simchas Torah comes also at the end of Sukkot. And one of the traditions we had in our community is that we would take on a mitzvah pledge every single year, something new that we weren't yet doing in our Jewish observance that we wanted to grow in, that we wanted to bring more Judaism into our life. And so each year we would choose a different mitzvah. One year we decided we're going to get mezuzahs hanging on each of the doorways of our house. One year was to light the Shabbat candles. Another year, I realized that we have to light the Shabbat candles at a certain time because we'd wait for my father to come home from shul and light them at 8:30 at night sometimes after licht was at 4:30, but we learned now to correct that. It was also, as time went on and more mitzvahs were being observed, there was saying the Moda'ani in the morning, giving tzedakah every day, saying the Shema before going to sleep. And then it was saying my own chapter of Tehillim every day and adding in davening. And so every year, slowly but surely, we would increase in the mitzvahs that we were observing. By the time I got to 4th grade, there were two major things that happened to me that completely changed my life. The first one happened on February 7th. I still remember the date today because of how special it was. And that is that we moved into a new home. Now, this wasn't an ordinary home. I'll show you some pictures shortly. But this is a home that when I was in kindergarten 4 years earlier, my parents took us to a 2-acre field. And they said, one day you're going to live here. So in my 5-year-old self, I'm looking around at the grass and I'm like, which blade of grass is going to be my bedroom? Like, I had no idea. What are they talking about that our house is going to be on this 2-acre field? Like, I didn't know houses get built. It was totally a novel concept to my 5-year-old mind. But as time went on, they took us and they would show us how the foundation was being built. And we watched the frame as it built up until it turned into this magnificent home. It was 3 stories high. We had gorgeous chandeliers. This is like the front entrance on the left with the stairwell going around. This was like right when you would walk into the house. To the left, there was a room. Let me see if I have a second picture. Yeah, this one at the bottom left corner, that was our like guest room with the fireplace and the grand piano that nobody knew how to play, but it played its own music throughout the house, so it was okay. This is a picture of my kitchen in one direction at the top, and then the other direction, the seating area. It was huge. It was like all the way the span of the house, the whole kitchen. You could see on the ceiling on the right, there's a beautiful mural that was painted. Going back here, there was murals also painted on the side, on the wall of the stairwell going upstairs. And also that was painted in our dining room with the chandelier there. This home was built with every ounce of my parents' care and love and passion and choice and style. They had an interior designer that helped them. And for me, going into 4th grade, as this was happening, it was kind of like playing Real House. You know, I got to choose, instead of a dollhouse, I got to choose the color of my carpet in my own bedroom. And I had my own personal bathroom, as did my brother had his own bathroom, and my other brother had his own bathroom, and my parents had the heated floors, and everything was so grand. We had a basement floor which had its own movie theater down there. We had another whole playroom that we had. We had an exercise room with a full 4 walls of mirrors with exercise equipment. This home was like incredible. Now, just to also point out, my parents are not flashy people. You would never know if you were to meet them in the street, what they have, if they don't have. They're not into brands and style, like they're very like ordinary, humble people. This just happened to be a dream that they had from a lifetime of growing up in a very difficult situation, both of them, one more than other financially, and, really being self-made and getting to the place that they did in life. And so this was, something that they had hoped would be their forever home, and they'll bring their children back. And so they really invested everything into this house. So that was number 1, February 7th, this new home that changed my life. The second thing that happened that same year happened a few months later on May 1st. And that is that my mother gave birth to a baby boy. And now I had 3 brothers, but even more than that, I had this little adorable baby. This is Max, little baby Max. And he was like the biggest gift that anyone could have ever given me. He was the most smiley, happy, bubbly baby, always in a good mood, always ready to play with me when I came home from school. And it was like a live, like baby doll that I got to take care of. And none of my friends at the time had babies, because in the circle that I grew up in, I was in a conservative day school, everyone was typical like me, that they would have one sibling older, one younger. If they had more than 2 kids in the family, 4 was like a huge family of children. And for sure, when in 4th grade, nobody was having little babies at home. So this immediately also became, he was like the star of the show for me and my friends. They'd want to come over to see my little baby. And I felt like I had like a renewed purpose having him come into my life. So fast forward a few years, and we are now in 8th grade. And I remember going to sleep one night in 8th grade. It was right after my bat mitzvah celebration. I had this big party and the whole hurrah of a bas mitzvah. And I remember going to sleep and I was saying Shema one night. And as I said Shema, I decided I'm going to add a personal prayer. And I said, thank you, Hashem, for making my life perfect. I mean, everything was going for me. I had good grades in school. I was a straight A student. I was graduating from middle school, about to start my high school, that I was going to the same school, just the upper class. I was popular. I had lots of friends, both boys and girls. I'd recently lost weight, so I felt very confident in myself. I was a dancer, and I was finally making it to all the advanced classes across jazz, tap, lyrical, ballet, musical theater. So I felt very proud of myself in that way. And everything was falling into place. I had my beautiful family, I had my little baby, and I had this gorgeous home, and just like everything was perfect. And I wanted to show gratitude to God that He made my life perfect. A few months later, this is now about March, we had a long extended weekend from school. I don't know if it was in service or what, but we basically had off on Friday. And somehow I convinced my parents to let me have a party at my house with all of my friends, the 72 kids in my class, because I didn't want to like leave kids out. So they let me invite 72 eighth grade kids over to my house. I don't know why, but that's what happened. So they all came and we're enjoying in all the space in my big house. You know, we went just on the bottom floor alone. We had a playroom, and we had with the ping pong table and the fuse table and all the different things. And we had our movie theater room, and we had the playroom that was where the video games were. And we had the exercise. I mean, there was plenty of space for 72 kids to hang out just on the bottom floor alone. But who was the absolute star and center of attention at this party? Was none other than, you can guess, my little baby brother, who now, I'll show you a picture of what he looked like at this point. At this point, he's now about 3 years old. And this is what he had. He had this gorgeous curly hair and the big smile with the little dimples. And oh my gosh, everyone was gushing over him, because how could you not? He was just the cutest little thing. And we were all like so happy to have him downstairs and playing with us. And as the night went on, I had a friend who was playing with him. And one of the things he was doing was spinning him around. So he picked my brother up and he spun him around and he put him back down, and everyone's laughing. And my brother's like a little dizzy, you know, and picks him up again and spins him around again and puts him back down. And my brother's still dizzy and he's saying, me busy, me busy. And he did it a third time, puts my brother down. But this time my brother couldn't stand up. He was like so dizzy that he had lost his balance and couldn't recalibrate. Like even after a few minutes, he kept wanting me to hold him. He wouldn't let me put him down. And I tried like looking at him like, Max, and come on, let's keep playing. And Max looked at me and he couldn't really, like he wasn't making eye contact. So I was like, okay, I guess I'll just bring him up to my mom, let him rest a little bit. That was a lot of spinning, you know, like give him a break from all these crazy kids. And I bring him upstairs to my mother. I told her what happened, and I went back down to hang out with my friends. And so we continued to play and whatever. And a few hours later, the party was over. So I went upstairs to walk out my friends, and their mothers and fathers were coming to pick them up. And standing greeting all the parents was not my mother. It was my mother's best friend, Michelle. And Michelle did not have kids my age. Her kids were the same ages as my brothers. She had 4 boys that were not in my class. So I said, what are you doing here? So she said, well, your mother actually brought Max to the hospital. I'm sure everything's fine, but I came to supervise until your friends go home, and I'm sure she'll be home soon enough. So I was like, okay. She said, yeah, really, I know. She just wanted to make extra careful that everything is okay. I'm like, okay. Anyway, everyone leaves. I go to sleep. I wake up the next morning. I sleep in a little. It's about 10 o'clock. And I go to my mother's room, check in, what happened? And she's still not home. And neither is my brother. And I'm getting a little bit nervous now. And this was in the early days of cell phones. But I think she had one at the time. And I called her, and she said, your father and I are coming home now with Max, and we'll explain everything to you, but don't worry, everything will be good. So that was a major red flag. My dad is a neurosurgeon. And in those days, he was working crazy hours. Some nights he wouldn't get home till after midnight, and he would leave before I woke up at 6:30 in the morning. And we rarely saw him. If he was home in the evening, it was definitely after 8 p.m. So the fact that my father's coming home on a Friday at 10:30 in the morning was not a good sign. But we didn't know what to expect. They come home, and Michelle also came again. And Michelle took Max and played with him in the other room. And my parents called us into my father's office with his mahogany desk and his big swivel chair. And his swivel chair was not facing us. We were sitting like on the couch and waiting for him to turn around and tell us what's going on, kind of looking at my mother, what's going on. And after what felt to us like an eternity, my father turned around and he has tears streaming down his cheek. And he said, your little brother, Max, has a brain tumor. And we didn't even what does that mean? Is this cancer? Is this life-threatening? What are you talking about? How could he's 3, how could this happen? So my father, being a neurosurgeon, of course, knew all too well the ins and outs of the situation, but how are you going to break this down to your kids who are in middle school and just in high school? And he basically says, there's a mass growing at the base of his head, right above his spine. And they did an MRI to find it, but the MRI is not showing clearly whether or not these cells have spread to the spinal fluid, which would mean that there could be growths in other areas of his body and would be very dangerous. And it's not possible to see from an MRI if it's malignant, meaning it's cancerous. That we would have to wait for the surgery to know. When is the surgery going to be? Monday morning was the next available time. So now we have our last Shabbos together for who knows how long. Come together in the kitchen Friday night, and there's little Max. I'll show you a picture of him again, little 3-year-old Max. And he's singing the Shalom Aleichem at the top of his lungs on his chair with his sweet little voice. And I'm turning around every few minutes just to stop myself from crying in front of him, because at least I wanted for him that this should be his last normal Shabbos for who knew? We had no idea what's going to happen. Before Shabbos, my father, of course, contacted Rabbi Vogel, the Chabad rabbi here. And on Shabbos, he told us that the whole world is praying for your little brother, Moshe Nachum ben Chana Rochel. Everyone is praying. So we said, what do you mean everyone's praying? This was before smartphones. This was before internet. AOL was just starting to come up. So to get a message out to the entire world, what does that mean? How did you even do that? So he had sat by his fax machine and faxed Schluachim all around the world, one after the next, hundreds of them, sending my brother's name all around the world, that his fellow Schluachim should have him in their prayers this Shabbos in honor of my brother, to spiritually prepare for the surgery he would have on Monday. And on Sunday, my father went along with Rabbi Vogel, and they went to the Ayal. And so for anyone who doesn't know what the Ayal is, it's the resting place of the Lubavitcher Rebbe and the Frierdiker Rebbe, the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. The 6th and 7th Rebbes are buried there. And it's said to have incredible spiritual power, because the same place of a tzaddik's burial, it says that there's a spiritual presence of the tzaddik in that place, and there's an opportunity for extreme connection. And it's almost like having a piece of Eretz Yisrael right there that you can connect in this holy place. And that's true of any tzaddik. You can go to the grave of a tzaddik. This is part of our tradition as a Jewish people of going to Kever Rachel, the cemetery, the burial place of our Rebbetzin Rachel in Eretz Yisrael. People would go to her gravesite to pray when the Jewish people were leaving Israel to go into exile. And so too we've had for many, many millennium this idea. However, going to the grave of the Rebbe is a whole nother level of connection, because the Rebbe is Rosh B'nai Israel. He is integrally connected to every single Jew, and is what they call a neshama klali, which means that he has a soul that incorporates every single one of our souls in his soul. And it says, there's many stories of the Rebbe, that when he became the Rebbe, it was right after the Frierdiker Rebbe, the 6th Rebbe, passed away. And it was a year later that he took on the leadership of being the Rebbe. And there were people who came to him, and he would tell them, did you visit my father-in-law at the Ayal about this matter? And they would say, yes. And he said, so why are you coming to me? He's already taking care of it for you. So there was a spiritual connection that the Rebbe had with the Frierdiker Rebbe to know this idea, but this idea that we have the shepherd never betrays his sheep, and the Rebbe is now even has even more of an ability to help us, not being confined in his body, of being the Rosh B'nai Israel. And so how do we tap into that? One of the ways we tap into that is by going to his resting place, going to the Ayal. And it's kind of like having this personal encounter where we see our deepest self by connecting to our Yechidah, to our deepest level of our soul, connecting with the Rebbe's deepest level of his soul. And in this way, we channel new blessings into our life. So my father went for the first time. He had never met the Rebbe in person. And he went for the first time to the aisle and prayed out his heart for my little brother, and probably took on a mitzvah in the merit of his refuah shalima, of his full and speedy recovery, and came back home. The next day, Monday, we were in the hospital, and Oria came. She sang Tehillim with us the whole day. We gave tzedakah, all as the spiritual strength and preparation leading into the surgery. And after some time, which felt also like forever, but it was hours and hours of this surgery, the doctor finally came out with the report. And the report was mixed. On one hand, the good news was that it had not spread, and they were able to remove the entire tumor from its location, which was a huge miracle and really good news. On the other hand, unfortunately, a few days later after testing it, it did come back that the tumor was malignant. And that would mean that my brother would have to go through chemotherapy, in which he lost all of his hair. This is my father holding him. He shaved his head so that my brother wouldn't feel alone when his hair started to fall out, and shaved his head as well. He had to relearn how to walk, how to talk. His balance was off. He forgot his speech. He had to get re-potty trained. He had years of physical therapy ahead of him, radiation, and who knew what the results would be. And my parents were amazing. They always stayed very positive. There was no question that it would be okay. At least to us, this is what they gave over to us, that strength and emunah. And they tried as hard as they could to keep our lives normal. I was dancing every night in my dance classes, 10 hours a week. I had my schoolwork. We had community members, friends who would make meals for us and deliver and drive us places. And it was incredible how our community came together to support us. But, one night I was going to sleep, saying the Shema like I did every night. And I remember saying, Hashem, what happened to my perfect life? Like, I thought everything was perfect. And the craziest thing is that nothing changed. Everything that I had thanked God for was still there. I was still popular, still had this nice home. I was still getting good in my dance classes. But all of a sudden, none of that felt important anymore. Like, that's what we're here for? We're here to be good dancers? We're here to get good grades? That's what life is all about? To be popular? That somebody should like me, so I should be different from who I truly am to get you to like me? That's what I'm here for? Or is there a deeper purpose over here? I mean, how could this happen? Is this a punishment to my little brother? This angel of a 3-year-old who is now 4? Like, he never hurt a fly. He was the most simchadik, peaceful, loving boy. This couldn't be a punishment to him. Is this a punishment to my parents? My father literally saves lives on a daily basis. My mother's a community activist who gives her everything to our Jewish community to build our Jewish Federation, the Jewish Community Center, the synagogues that she's been a part of. She would give the shirt off of her back for another person. This can't be a punishment to them. So if this isn't a punishment, then why is this happening? Why are we here? What's the point of life? And these were the questions in 8th grade that I started asking. I'd look out into the sky and see the stars like billions of miles away. I don't know how far away. And I think of myself, like, here's this massive sun that looks like a little nothing. And here I am, literally a little nothing. And I'm like a speck of a nothing. Like, what's my worth? Like, what are we doing over here? Why would God care about me and my family? And of course, my friends are still like in the popularity scene and the sports scene and the school scene. And I'm like in a different world already. Like, what? It's not about that anymore. In 9th grade, we went for the first time to Israel. And my family, I'd never been before, none of the kids. My parents had gone in the 80s. Now we're talking about 2001. It was right after 9/11. And my brother had left the day before 9/11 to go to a trip to Israel, where they did do a study abroad program in the school that we went to, where the first semester of school was spent studying in Israel. And it was very cool. They would learn things straight from the Tanakh in the place that it took place. So let's say they would learn about the prophet Elijah, and they would go to Har Carmel, the Mount Carmel, where a story of Elijah took place, and they'd learn the story in the place that it happened and just brought it to life in such a powerful way. I had the opportunity to do this 2 years later when I was in 11th grade. But one of the things they did was a parent trip. You would go and visit your sibling, your family member there, and it would bring the families also to have a connection with Israel. So we couldn't go as a full family because of my brother. Somebody would have to stay back with him. So my mother and I went one trip, and my father and my other brother went the other trip. And one of my parents would stay back with my brother, who was still in recovery. So I remember going with my mom, and here we're getting into a cab. And first of all, just hearing Hebrew all around you when you're from Delaware, and like nobody speaks Hebrew. You're like, you don't notice anybody being Jewish over here. So that was like, wow, people are speaking Hebrew. So I'm all of a sudden like so proud that I went to a Jewish day school and I learned Hebrew my whole life. And then we're in the cab, and as we're getting out, it's Friday afternoon, and on the radio station, it's saying, Shabbat Shalom U'Barach, on the radio station. And I was like, what? Like, what radio station says Shabbat Shalom? It was crazy. So anyways, we had a little bit of time before Shabbat starts, and we're walking around the streets of Jerusalem, and we're like, let's do some shopping. So we try to go to this store, and it's closing. And then we go to that store, and it's closing, and all the stores are closing. But these are not even religious people. I mean, they're not even wearing yarmulkes, and they're closing their stores. And then you had the stores that were run by religious people, and they're closing their stores too. And I started to realize, wait a minute, Shabbos is not just for religious people. Like the only people I knew that kept Shabbos was Rabbi Vogel and Oria. And like I had one friend in Philadelphia I knew, but all of a sudden I'm like, wait a minute, like Shabbos is for every Jew. And we go to the hotel. And what was the hotel diner? I'd been to all these hotels, you'd travel and go on vacations together and everything and keep kosher style. But now we're able to actually eat kosher food in the hotel. And what was the Shabbos table on Friday night? They had grape juice and wine and challah. It was like mind-boggling that this is happening in a hotel. It was so incredible, the emphasis on Judaism. And I was so inspired. I said, when I go home, I have to increase Shabbos in my life. And when I got home, I decided I'm not going to use my computer anymore on Shabbos. That was like the only AOL I said was just starting up at this time. And that was my communication with my friends. I was like, I'm not using my computer on Shabbos. And by the end of 9th grade, we went back with my grandparents. We had to bring them back with us, my grandmothers. I had lost both my grandfathers by that time. And I came home. I said, I'm doing one more thing. I'm not going to use the phone on Shabbos. And I went another time in 10th grade, and I came home and I said, I'm ready to do everything for Shabbos. I'm not turning lights on and off. I don't want to write anymore. I don't want to rip to use something. I'm just going to do everything to keep Shabbos. There's just one tiny problem. Do you remember that beautiful dream house that my parents built? I'll bring back the picture for you so you can remember what dream house we're talking about. So this house here that my parents built from scratch happened to be 7 miles away from Shul, which is a 2.5-hour walk. So that walk did not happen very frequently. And therefore, I wanted to be a part of the community. So the only thing that my family would still do, because my family was also kind of growing along, I maybe was a little bit further than the rest, but for the most part, we were on the same page of for sure going to Shul on Shabbos every Shabbos. We wouldn't go shopping after. We would just drive to Shul and drive home. And that's all that we did. Everything else we tried our best to keep while we were home. Until I went in 11th grade to Israel. And now I'm living in Israel for 5 months. I mean, there's no driving. You're walking, every street corner has a shul on it. Baruch Hashem, it's amazing. And so I came home in the middle of 11th grade, and I could not go back to getting into the car. It was like, I had Shabbos. I got the gift. There's no way I'm giving it back. And it was fine. I'm almost out of the house. I'm not here to be my parents' Rebbitzin, to tell them what they should do. And I'm not, like, okay, I have another 1.5 years and I'll just stay home and daven at home, like not a big deal. Or sometimes I'll walk if it's something important. And I did. One parent would walk me 2.5 hours one way, and the other would walk me 2.5 hours the other way through the back roads and everything. And occasionally we'd get to shul for whatever was needed at the time. And that summer, my older brother came home, and he had spent the year in yeshiva in Israel the same year. He's 2 years ahead of me, so that was his gap year after high school. And he decided he wanted to go to yeshiva, so he came home. And now he's also keeping Shabbos. So the two of us figured, we'll daven together on Shabbos. And one summer morning, the beginning of June, it's Shabbos morning, and my father getting ready to go to shul, and gets my other two brothers who are still driving to shul, Adam, my younger brother Adam, and my youngest brother Max. So this is what Max looks like about now. He's about 7 years old, doing so well. You would never know that he had the, tumor that he had, and his hair grew back, and he had this big smile, and he was just the cutest thing. And obviously still needed some help with his balance, and there were still a few things, but he was doing so beautiful, and he was in remission at this point for about 4 years. 5 years is like, when you're in good, it's a very good marker of hopefully that it wouldn't grow back. And my father says, Max, come on, time to go to shul. We're going to be late if we don't go now. And Max turns to him and he says, no, Dad, I can't. He says, what do you mean? And my dad looks down at his feet and he sees Max isn't wearing his shoes. So he's like, oh, you can't find your shoes? Come on, where are they? Come on, let's find your shoes so we won't be late. And Max says, no, Dad, it's not my shoes. It's Shabbos. And you're not supposed to drive on Shabbos. And my father heard those words from this little Max and everything he'd been through, and seeing where he is at this point, and he's saying, you don't drive on Shabbos? It melted his heart. And he walked into the room with my mother and he said, that's it. We have to move. Within 1 month, my parents sold their dream home that they spent so much time, energy, love, money, dreaming. And in 1 month, they left it to move to a house that was 1 mile away from shul, that was less than a quarter of the size of the house that they had built. And they never looked back, because for them, the value of Shabbos so outweighed even the value of their dream home. And there was no question that this is what life is about. It's not about the beautiful home. Yes, it's very nice to have a beautiful home, but that's not what life is about. Life is about serving Hashem. Life is about Shabbos. Life is about meaning, purpose, connection. And if that meant moving to be closer to shul, then that's what they did. So they moved. I moved on my last year, my senior year of high school. I was in a new house. And I went on to seminary. And one of the things I was thirsty for in seminary, I didn't want to go to a seminary where I was going to be brainwashed. Like they're not going to tell me that I'm going to become Shomer Negiah, which means that you protect your touch and you conserve it and keep it safe and only keep it for women. Because in this, background I had friends that were boys and guys and give them hugs and everything. And that's crazy, I'm not going to be Chabad. That's what crazy people do. I just want to be, I'll keep Shabbos and kosher. But I had a big question of where am I drawing the line of my mitzvah observance? Where, tznius, but why do we do tznius? And, I was really unsure of my own growth. Where am I stopping to become more religious? And then the second question that I came into seminary with was, what do Jewish people believe for thousands of years? I'd gone to a pluralistic day school, which had conservative and reform and reconstructionist and modern Orthodox. And basically everybody was right. So what I loved about my school was the inclusivity. All different Jews from all different backgrounds could come together in our school. But what was so confusing was there was no MS. I mean, the MS means truth. And so the only truth was whatever you want, if you want to believe that the Torah was written by 4 very educated people who had different writing styles during different time frames, and then it was, put together, that's what Reform believes, and then, that's your philosophy. And yes, they were divinely inspired, and then there's the modern Orthodox, who was the socially off a little bit guy. I don't know why the representation in my school, but and he would be yeah, and God came down and gave us the Torah on Mount Sinai. And then they're all yeah, that's real, nobody believed that. And then the conservative rabbi would say, oh, whatever you feel either you could believe it was written or divinely inspired, but maybe if it was given by God, it changes and we have to make it be fitting with our lives. And I had no idea what direction I was taking, because I didn't know what is true. What is Judaism? What do we say for thousands of years? Not just what's changed the last few hundred. What is our truth of Torah? So that was another thing I came into my seminary questioning. And the last thing was the role of a woman. I mean, my mother and my grandmothers were powerhouse people that are community leaders and activists and feminists and, so much My mother is a physician assistant. That's where she met my father in medical school. And, very much about women having the ability to do anything and everything. And I 1,000% agreed with that then. And I agree with it now. A woman is amazing. And I didn't understand, though, how does that fit into the framework of Orthodox Judaism, of Judaism in general? What is the role of a Jewish woman? And to say that she should be at home, is that fulfilling her potential? And just that, or is she allowed to be educated, and how educated? And so I needed to find, why do we wear modest clothes? Why don't we read from the Torah? Not that I needed to. It wasn't like I was thirsty to lead a minyan and read from the Torah, but I wanted to understand it. I wanted to know, why don't we do that? What is the beauty of being a Jewish woman, and the beauty of not getting up and being the cantor of the shul? And I had all these questions. So as I went into seminary, I decided I'm going to find the most left wing modern Orthodox women's rights seminary I could possibly find. So I'm not going to be brainwashed and become an extremist, but I'll get my answers to my questions. And what happened over that year was mind-boggling, because I actually found the emes of Torah, that the more you learn and the more you see inside the text, it was a whole new world of information, Jewish texts that, I know that there's the Torah, I know there's the Chumash, I know there's the Siddur, but the world of Judaism, it was a world I didn't know existed. The vastness, the commentaries, the stories, the depth, the wisdom. I mean, this is life. It was coming alive to me. And the more you would learn in 10 different locations, and they all came down to the exact same point. It was like, whoa. And my teachers in different classes didn't even know that teacher said something. And the fact that everything kept coming together, I started to realize Hashem is one. Torah is emes. Torah is from Har Sinai, Mount Sinai. God did come down and give us the Torah. And there's a proof of that he gave it to millions of Yidden at once. You can't make that up. You can't just come to your children and be like, oh yeah, this time, millions of people saw it. Who are the millions of people that'll vouch for that? There have to be people that say, yeah, we were also there. And that gets passed down. So the truth of Torah finally started developing inside of me. And with that was the realization that to stop growing is what are you talking about? There's no stopping. The ability and privilege to constantly be growing and learning and deepening your connection, which enables you to transcend yourself, to transcend all barriers, limitations, physicality, to see purpose and meaning and really be alive. Was there's no limit to this. So yes, I'm of course going to protect my touch, because there's no greater privilege than I have than to know how special I am and how special my touch is. And yes, of course, I'm going to wear modest clothing because I'm a queen. And who doesn't want to dress in the most dignified way that exists out there? And of course, I'm going to want to keep the highest standard of kosher because I'm holy, because God said I'm holy. He made me holy. And I started getting to this place where I could find a space where I'm transcending everything that was normal to become real. I don't know if that makes sense. But along with that was still my burning question. What about the role of a woman? We learned Gemara. I had women teachers that were literally Torah scholars. They knew Gemara inside and out. They were mefarshim themselves. They were brilliant scholars. And I thought, wow, maybe to be a woman who's really important in Judaism, you have to be really learned. And you have to know how you could be just like the men, as much as you could push the limit, but not be a man. And it still didn't sit right with me, because I was still so it was still a fight. I needed to still prove myself as a woman. I wasn't satisfied. And that's where my husband enters the scene. My husband was also there the same year that I was in seminary. He was in yeshiva. That's a whole story that you can hear from him directly, maybe one day. But to make a long story short, my brother basically was best friends with him and convinced him that he needs to go to yeshiva. My husband says, in his eloquent English, he said, dude, you just don't get it. You don't know who you are as a Jew, and you need to go learn about it. And he convinced him to join him in Israel for the year. So over that year, my husband was also learning a lot, and he had made a switch over to my Note Institute, the Chabad yeshiva, for people who are starting to learn about Judaism for the first time and starting to re-enter and learn about mitzvah observance. And he absolutely fell in love with Chassidus. And by the springtime, we were starting to talk to each other in a more serious way, realizing that we probably had a future in store for us. And it came to a point where like I knew he was the one for me. That's a whole story. If you want to ask questions and stand at the end for the after party, I could tell you how we like came together. But it reached a point where there was a big issue because here I was in a modern Orthodox school. And I defined myself that way. And I said, how are we going to raise our children? I mean, you're going to Chabad, you're calling yourself Chabad, and I'm modern Orthodox. Like what shita? Like what's going to be our way of our family and of our children? So he said, well, what do you know about Chabad? And I said, well, really, I know nothing about Chabad, except that I heard that my rabbi and rebbetzin that I grew up with that are like my second parents are Chabad. And I know that when we went to their house on Pesach, they didn't eat matzah balls on Pesach in their soup. Like, who doesn't eat matzah? It's matzah on Pesach, matzah ball. Like, it was so, and he's like pulling it out of me, like, what do you know? And I realized I know absolutely nothing at all about Chabad. And he said, did you ever learn Chassidus? And I didn't think that I had because I never took a formal class in Chassidus. So he said, I'm going to buy you a book and just see what you think. He bought me a book by somebody by the name of Nechama Greisman, Mrs. Nechama Greisman, who is a beautiful teacher and mother who passed away pretty young, actually, in Eretz Yisrael, leaving a big family, but making a huge impact on the world. And one of the things that they did is they printed like an anthology of her talks. She had a few books. And so she would give over a sicha, a talk of the Rebbe in her own words every single week on the Torah portion of the week. And it was called Through the Eyes of a Woman. And that spoke to me because that was my whole question is like, what is the role of a woman? And as I was reading it, I started getting like thirsty for more because I realized like, you know, when you don't realize that you're missing something and then you taste it and you're like, how in the world did I breathe when I didn't have oxygen? Like, that's what it came to. Like, I started learning Chassidus and like everything changed. My whole world changed. It was slow. It was gradual. I didn't realize then. But now, like, it's literally my oxygen. I can't breathe without it. And to think that I like was able to survive so long, but I realized that I was actually getting it. One of my rabbis in my seminary was a Chabad rabbi, and he would teach us Chassidus without saying it was Chassidus. So I realized he's actually feeding us the whole year. But anyway, I started to open myself up to learning more and more about Chassidus until I met a Schluach by the name of Rosie Weinstein, who's a dear friend of mine to this day and still a big mentor and role model for me. And she happens to be the rebbetzin in my husband's community. And it was the first time that I felt like I'm actually meeting a Chabad rebbetzin, because my rabbi and rebbetzin in Delaware, they were my family. Like, they weren't Chabad, you know. This is the first time I'm actually meeting someone who's Chabad, okay? And I was blown away by her. She carried herself with such royalty. I walked into her home. I felt like she has what I've been looking for. This is a woman in Judaism. The pride, the dignity, the love, there was no apology. There was no apologetic. Like, I heard a woman ask her about reading the Torah, and she gave such a beautiful, simple answer. And it was just emes. I remember she taught me about the 3 mitzvahs of a Jewish woman, about lighting the Shabbos candles, making challah, mikvah, and the depth of those mitzvahs and how they create the foundation of Judaism, let alone the Jewish home and the family. And I started realizing, wow, the role of a woman is integral, not because she can be like a man, but because in her essence of what it is to be a woman, this is what it's all about. And I could embrace that in myself. It was the first time that I could embrace being a woman without the fight, without the not being good enough, and see to be at home with my children is the most incredible gift that I could possibly have. Chaya, I want to ask you, what timing do I have? Because I have a few more stories I could share. I could cut it here, like give a little bit of the end of the story, open for questions. You tell me.
We're good. We're good with time.
We're
We'd
good.
love to hear
I'll
more.
tell the next
Yeah.
story because it's a really special one. And then I'll give the, where we are today, and then we'll open for questions. So fast forward a little bit. My husband and I ended up getting married, Baruch Hashem, about 17 years ago now. And we decided that there would be no greater privilege than getting to be Shluchim of the Rebbe. There's a whole funny story how my husband was in economics in his university, and he was totally not interested in it being his career path. And I said, well, what do you love? And he's like, I love learning Torah and teaching it. And I said, so why don't you become a rabbi? And he's like, Me, a rabbi, like a year ago. Okay, this part I didn't tell you yet. He was a drug dealer on his campus. He's one of the drug dealers, and he's into rap, and he's like into trouble. He was in prison a few times for drug-related things. And he's like, me, a rabbi? Like, you lost your mind. And I remember thinking, it was like so obvious, like, no, if this is something you're passionate about, then you'll find a way to make it happen. And he did. He went to yeshiva and studied for 2.5 years. He got his rabbinical degree, maybe 3 years. And it was a miracle. And we had the incredible opportunity to move back to Delaware, which is where we live today. And we run our programs here, and I'll share with that soon. But a few years after we were married, we were spending Yom Kippur by his family in Newtown in Pennsylvania with the Weinsteins. And I came home after Shabbos, and I uncovered this crazy situation that happened. So my parents, right after they moved into that house a mile away, but about 1.5 or 2 years later, they found a house even closer to Shul, less than a half mile away. And it was bigger and it was more their style. And they decided they're going to move again. So they moved to this house, and they moved in the summer. And it took some time to get everything moved in and acclimated. So one of the things that just they would remember on Shabbos, but then forget when Shabbos was over until the next Shabbos, was to get like a keypad by the side door that they could let themselves into the house without needing a key. And so, they would leave their door unlocked most of the time because they didn't carry a key with them, or they would leave a key somewhere, whatever, until the high holiday season was coming, and they're, preparing for the high holidays. And so now they're like, oh, like on our list is to get the keypad for Yontiv so that we're prepared and we have this ready to go. So Rosh Hashanah, it was perfect. They locked their door. They had the keypad. They got in. Everything was great. Now it's Yom Kippur. They have guests staying over at their house. And as my father and their guest was on the way out the door, he turned to my mother and said, don't forget to lock the door after me and go out the other way because, we have the keypad. She's like, yeah, of course, of course. She's lighting the Yontiv candles with her guest. And they start talking a little bit by the candles. And then they realize the time and they run off to Shul for Kol Nidre. They didn't want to miss the service. And as my mother was opening the door to the Shul, what did she remember? Oh my gosh, I went out the front door and I forgot to lock it. Okay, it's not the first time that's happened. She wasn't going to miss Kol Nidre and go back home at this point. Okay, she went into Shul. In the middle of the Ma'ariv prayer after Kol Nidre, a man from the back of the Shul, who usually sits in the back of the Shul, Mr. Pivar, approached my father, and he said, there's a man and a teenager in the lobby, and they're asking to see you. So my father's a neurosurgeon. He's used to emergencies, medical needs. You see, immediately puts his machzor down, runs out to the lobby to see what the situation is. And this man greets himself, and he says, he introduces himself and says, my name is, so-and-so, this is my son. We're your neighbors across the street from you. So my parents live on the corner of their street. They're the last house. So there's 2 streets, next to them. And they said, we're the neighbor across the street from you. And we came to tell you that there's been a fire in your house. And we realized that you must be here. So we wanted to offer you a ride home if you want to get home. So this is like a huge shock. My father says, what's the state of the fire? So they say, oh, well, the fire company has come. The fire is out, but we felt it was important to get to you as soon as possible. So my father's newly keeping Yontiv now in Shabbos, and he's thinking to himself, does it help me to get into the car to get home to a fire that's already been put out on Yom Kippur? Like, how is that helping anything? It's not. So he said, thank you very much, but I'll be home as soon as I can. And he actually went back into Shul, davened as quickly as he could to finish the prayer, and ran home. He didn't even tell my mother. He just didn't want her to worry. He ran home as fast as he could. And as he's getting home, he sees these 2 massive firemen with all their gear coming down his front steps. The home is still standing, so he doesn't know what the damage was. And he just says, thank you so much. You saved my house. And they said, don't thank us. Thank the couple that put the fire out. Because if this fire would have gone on for 5 more minutes, your whole house would have been destroyed. So he's like, what, a couple, 5 minutes? Like, okay, whatever. He went inside to see, what's the damage. And he goes in and he looks in the dining room, and it happened to be where my mother had lit her Shabbos candles. And he went, and there was a buffet table where my mother lit her candles on, and the whole top of the buffet table was completely charred. So I'll show you a picture. It's this picture on the left. You see it's all black with like a little bit of remnants there. Those two spots, those circles are where my mother's candlesticks were. The whole thing was black. He followed up his eyes. If you're to the left, up the window, you see it was black and the window was cracking. On the right, you could see more damage on the dresser. And then he followed his eyes all the way up to the window. And if you look at the bottom right picture, you see how the fringes were just starting to blacken? The smoke was just starting to get to them. And my father realized that if this fire had continued burning for another 5 minutes, meaning that those curtains would have caught fire and burned for 5 more minutes, he understood what the fireman said, that the whole house would have been destroyed. So it was very smoky from the fire. So he went out and sat down on his front steps to get some fresh air. And as he's sitting down, a couple approaches him. And the couple says, "Are you the owner of the house?" He said, "Yeah." They said, "We figured we were about to leave. We were waiting around, but we were about to leave and we saw that you came. We wanted to introduce ourselves to you. My name is, Kate, and this is my husband, Bob. And we're the ones who put the fire out." So my father's like, "Oh my gosh, can you please tell me like what happened? How did this come to be?" So they said, "Sure." We were driving down Veal Road, which is the road that my parents are on perpendicular. And they said, "Actually, we were thinking of going a different way to get to where we go. Usually we take a different way, but the GPS took us this way this time." And we're on the way down and we see in the distance that there's this like beautiful flames, in the window ahead. So we comment, "Wow, it's so pretty." And as we get closer, we realize, wait a minute, these flames are not in control. And we immediately call 911 as we're passing by the house. And we tell them the streets and the address. And, we hung up and we realized, like, what if there's people in the house and they don't realize that there's a fire? We can't wait for the fire company to come. So they turned back around, pulled up in front of our house and came to the front door, and they're knocking and they're ringing the doorbell and nobody's answering because nobody's home. Everyone's at shul. And they start looking through the window and they see through the window that there's a little dog. My parents had a puppy at the time. And they're like, "Oh my gosh, we have to get in to save this dog." And they go back to the front door and they're ringing and they're knocking and they try the handle and it opens. It was unlocked. So they sprint for the kitchen, they find pots, and the two of them put out a fire that was already reaching feet into the sky, already reaching the curtains. And with pots of water, they put out this fire. And they said by the time the fire was out, they went outside. 5 minutes later, the fire company pulled up. Now, they didn't hear the fireman talking to my father and saying, if 5 more minutes, this would have burned. But my father understood very well that it was really because of these people that his whole home was saved, and everything that he had was really because of them. And he felt so grateful. And I mean, also like the self-sacrifice, like they could have been sued. There's so many things that could have stopped them that broke into someone's house. And they who says that they didn't start the fire? I mean, there's so many things that could have gone wrong. And they put all of that aside to help another person. And he said, "It's my holiday right now, so I can't give you anything, but please, tell me how I can look you up. What's your last name? I would love to, send you something when I can." So she says, "Sure, I'm Kate and Bob, and this is our last name. I don't remember now." And they say, "What's your name?" So he says, "My name is Michael Sugarman." And they say, "Michael Sugarman, are you related to Dr. Sugarman?" So he says, "Well, yeah, I'm Dr. Sugarman." Because by now, remember this picture of him from when I was a young girl. So I'll show it to you now. So this is the picture of him, even when she would have maybe seen him was around this time, or definitely maybe around this time, years earlier. Maybe this was about 10 to 15 years before. And now my father looks like this, with a full beard, and he balded a little. And so she said, "Are you related to Dr. Sugarman?" So he said, "Well, actually, I am also Dr. Sugarman." So she says, "Oh my gosh, do you remember my mother?" So he says, "Your mother?" She says her name. He says, I see clients every single day. I have patients that I'm helping. Like, maybe if you could jog my memory, can you remind me the story of your mother? And maybe I'll remember." She says, "Sure. 13 years ago, my mother was in a coma. And she was non-responsive. She was on life support. And she really needed a neurological procedure. But in the condition that she was in, you weren't able to do the procedure. So she was in the state for a few days. And it got to a point where my brother and I started arguing with each other. my brother said, Mom lived a good life, and this is really not fair. We're being so selfish. How could we keep her in this state as a vegetable on life support? And we're doing this for us because we can't say goodbye. It's not right. The right ethical thing to do is to pull the plug and let her finish her life. That was so beautiful. That was so good. And she said, but I was of a total different opinion. What do you mean? We can't give up. What if she turns around? What if something happens? What if we could do the procedure? She's still so young. There's so much life left in her. Like, it's not time now to give up. And we're going back and forth and back and forth. And the only thing that we agreed on was that we would come to you, Dr. Sugarman, and we would ask for your advice. And whatever you would tell us is what we would do. We both trusted you. So we arranged a meeting and we asked you, what should we do? And you told us, Dr. Sugarman, that we should wait 10 days and see what would happen. If she would start to show signs of improvement, we would proceed with the procedure and go from there. And if not, let's reconvene in 10 days and see what options we have in front of us. So we both felt settled and at peace with this decision, and we gave her 10 days to see what would happen. In those 10 days, my mother started to get better and turn around to the point that you were able to do the procedure on her. And her health was restored to even better than it was before. She came completely back into herself and had another 13 full years of life. And my mother just passed away in June. And now it's October, and this is the least that we could have done to repay you for giving us our mother, was to save your house. And my father, wow, yeah. And that night, the next night, I came back from Philadelphia, where we were for their Yantiv. And I remember it was very smoky, and I'm asking my dad, like, what happened? He's like, oh, there was a fire. I'm like, what do you mean there's a fire? Like, what happened? And it was like pulling teeth to get the story out of them, my mother and my father. And they didn't realize the full picture, because it happened, when it's happening to you, you don't necessarily see the whole story. But when they started telling me this point and that point and this point and that point, and it all started coming together, the hashgacha pratis, the divine providence of seeing God's hand so revealed in the story, of seeing how something from 13 years earlier could come full circle, that the people who happen to be the ones to see the fire and the GPS tells them on its own to go this way and not that way, by chance, quote unquote, is so godly instructed and godly ordained. You can't even deny it. And it's this divine providence that we live with every single moment of our lives. This was a window to see Hashem's hand in our life, but this is the every moment of our life. And I remember one of the things that inspired me so much about Rosie Weinstein is she would come home with stories of hashgacha pratis from the grocery store. How she saw somebody she didn't see in all these years, and then she left her purse at home, and the person wanted to give her a gift anyway, and she covered the bit. Like, all these crazy stories that you think, like, this doesn't happen to me. Like, these aren't normal stories, until you start to see that they do happen to you. And you start putting the pieces together and opening up your eyes to see the details and to recognize how the pieces come together, and that the pieces come together, and that this is not just a random occurrence, but that everything is with reason. And so the journey continues. I remember reaching a point where I felt like I'd done, every year, another mitzvah pledge. I'm growing and growing and growing, until it reached a point where, like, how could I grow anymore? I mean, I don't have time to learn in seminary for 8 hours. Now I'm a mother with 3 children, and I have a shlichus, I have a community that I'll share with you shortly. And I have, my husband and and we're hosting people for Shabbos, and, like, there's not enough time in the day. And I'm already davening what I can, and I'm doing chitas as much as I can. And, like, I couldn't do more. I almost felt like I'd reached like a wall, and I wanted to keep growing, but I didn't know how. And that's when a friend of mine introduced me to my teacher, Esther Gore, who I've now been learning with for almost 11 years, along with Elka, who's on the call. So thank you, Elka, for being here, because we're really like a family that we learn together. And this was the beginning of truly learning Chassidus for me. And I started to realize that the growth now is not external, but it's internal. It's growing in how I think and how I understand myself, how I understand Hashem, and how I understand reality. And what I think is normal, when you start to look at the world through the perspective of the Rebbe, what's normal and obvious to the Rebbe becomes what's normal and obvious to you. Like, your whole reality shifts, and you start to see the world being the garden that it is instead of the jungle. It's the same world. How do I shift to see the garden that the Rebbe said, Basi Lagani, we're living in the garden, and it's up to us to reveal that to the world. And this is the gift of Chassidus. It's the refinement of our thinking. The refinement of our thinking then refines our emotions, because we can start to understand that our emotions are a child of our thoughts. I don't even know what I think in my subconscious, but my emotions tell me. And how do I do that? Chassidus gives us the tools and the ability to start to transcend myself in a whole new way, not just from what I'm doing and being on fire, but even being as religious and doing as many mitzvahs as you can and being as observant as possible. We could still be at a wall, and Chassidus breaks the walls down. It breaks down the limitations, and you become a whole new person. And I really think that the only reason I started a high school last year, Baruch Hashem, here in Delaware, where we started off with 12 girls, and now we're up to 20, and Mir Hashem next year we're almost doubling. It will be about 40 girls here in Delaware. And that could be a whole nother class in itself, how we got to the high school. But I would never, ever be able to do it without Chassidus and without Esther, my teacher, and without my group Elka that we learned together with. They were my support group, and it was with Chassidus that enabled me to have that emunah, that ability to take one step in front of the next and let Hashem take care of the results that brought me to where I am today. So I think I'll stop here because I could keep going, but I want to just tell you, what happened to all the characters in the story. Where are they today, and what's happening today? So first of all, I'll start with my husband. So you see, you get to see him. So this summer we're celebrating 17 years together, Baruch Hashem. And he's also known as the rapping rabbi, Rabbi Rochel Flikshtein. If you're on Instagram, he has rapping underscore rabbi. And he shares his music and inspirational things all the time over there. We have 8 children, so I'll show you them. These are our 8 children. So Shoshi's at the top left. She's almost 16. Next Monday night, Tuesday, she'll be 16. Layla is turning 14 soon. Chezi turns 12 right after Shavuos. Then comes Yassi, the second row on the left. He's 10. And then Mendy is 7. And then Zalmi is 5. And then Chayla is on the left, and she's 3. And then little baby Isaac is, I think, 17 months now, about 1.5 years old. So these are our children that we're so blessed with. Our parents, I told you this is my mother and father today, who live right down the street from us. They're also shluchim, even though they're undercover. I say, you never know. They don't have the formal official title, but they're constantly teaching and giving and sharing with the community. And there's no way that I could do what I do without both of them as incredible support and love that we have. These are my in-laws, who, if you would hear my husband's story, they're Russian, coming from absolutely no background religiously. I mean, this is a picture of my husband growing up by a Xmas tree, that arrow, that's my husband, just to show you where they came from. This was their New Year's bush, and this is his sister, Fanny, and his 2 cousins that they grew up together. This is my husband in high school over here. That's my brother next to him in the maroon jacket. My husband's one with the funny top hat. This was him in his drug dealing, rapping days. Here he is in college. So they have a long journey together. My husband and this was what my brother looks like today. They're very good friends still, best friends. And it's very special. So to see my in-laws, who have made huge strides, my mother-in-law wearing a sheitel, and my father-in-law never taking a yarmulke off his head, and learning at this stage of their life about Yiddishkeit and Shabbos and Kashrus. They're just incredible. They kasher their kitchen. They're fully Shabbos observant. It's amazing. So in our community, these are some of the things we have. This is our Hebrew school. This is our camp. We run a CGI. We have a C-teen group with teens from across our community that we take into New York for the International Shabbaton, much like JLI. And that's what we do in the community. And Max now goes by Maish. He's a mashkiach in Philadelphia at one of the popular dairy restaurants over there. And this is his beautiful wife, Zeri. They got married about 2 years ago, and they're due actually any day now. So Hashem should bless them with the B'shah Tova and brachas and an easy delivery. And this is really a miracle that 23 years later, he was 3 years old now, he had just turned 4. And now he's 20, he just turned 27. His birthday was right after Pesach. You would never know that he went through what he did. And he's about to have his own child. And it's unreal, the miracles revealed in his life and all of our lives. And so in conclusion, I still say Shema every night, Baruch Hashem, and I still take time to say thank you to Hashem. And I actually say now, thank you, Hashem, for making my life perfect. But it's not the perfect of when I was in 8th grade. It's not because I'm popular or good at dance or because I have this fancy, beautiful, big house. But it's perfect because Hashem gives me the opportunity on a regular basis to have a connection, to be able to transcend myself, to live a life of meaning and godliness where we can spread the light of Torah and the light of mitzvahs and literally live the times of Geula in our life. We already have the tools through Chassidus to see the world of redemption every single day, to see the Ashkach Pratis, the miracles happening all around us. And there's no greater privilege that I could ever dream of. Maybe I wanted to be a doctor. This is like, I couldn't have dreamed to live a more meaningful, special life. The opportunity I have to learn with my high schoolers every day, my family, my shluchas. It's like, I don't know what I did to deserve to be connected with the Rebbe, to have a Rebbe, to be his shlucha, that he trusts me to be his principal. This is like, I'm going to get emotional talking about it because there's no greater gift. And so I still say thank you. But it's thank you for the perspective, not thank you for the circumstances. Well, also thank you for the circumstances. But the circumstances are never perfect, but the perspective can always be refined. So, L'chaim, thanks for joining. I don't know if you have questions still, Chaya.
Wow. Okay, before we come to some of the questions, now everything ties together. Originally, I asked you if you would share with your husband, because you both have, he also has an incredible story, how you guys met, how you came together, and we are going to have a sequel. We were going to do a vote, but I know everyone's voting yes. So we'll talk after the class. I also just want to say something about you that I found like blown away. We're very grateful for everyone that sends sponsorship for the classes and future classes. It really helps, cover our speakers and cost of the class. And I want to just say before we do a roll call, I first want to give the thank yous because I feel very humbled and lucky that I get to have this opportunity of bringing the most amazing guest speakers onto the class. And there's a higher power, Hashem and the Rebbe literally plants the ideas in my head of who to get. And people ask me like, how do you think about it? I'm like, it just comes, which is so true. So I just want to say that it was an excellent choice. It was definitely worth the wait to have you join us. It was the timing that was right. And I'm just blown away. So before we go for questions, I just want to also say that our guest speaker, who's amazing, she wanted to know, I asked her about sponsorship and she goes, all the sponsorship is going to my high school, which we're going to do a whole nother class on that because it sounds fascinating about education and, how to educate, our young girls today. So if anybody wants to also donate, you still can, and it's going to go to Beis Chana High School. So we're going to link it in the recording because many people listen to the recording from around the globe, and you can give anything, even $5, $10, $18, it adds up. And I'm just so inspired by your story. And I see that everything you do is just so with heart and love and you're so genuine. And let's help her high school blossom.
Can I show you something right now? We're at the end of the year. And so my students are having their end of year program. And tonight there is the Nikonim wrap up. So I'm overhearing them singing in the other room. So I just want you to say hi to them so you see what they're doing. So 1 second, I'm at the Chabad Center. They don't know I'm coming in, so hold on, let me just tell them.
Wow,
Guys, can you say hi for me? Here's wait, hold on, I have to take you off of, wait. Wait, how do I take it off? Oh, there.
Hi, guys.
Okay, this is an amazing class that I was asked to share my story with, so they're on.
Wow.
And I heard you guys singing so beautifully in here. Yeah, do you guys want to sing something? Yeah. So you can see them in action, amazing girls. This is some of them here.
I just want to say if any men are listening or listen to the recording, this part, just tune out.
Yeah, tune this
That's
part
all
out.
Isha.
Okay, let's see.
This was not part of the program, but it's awesome.
This was not, but you get to see a taste of Beis Chana.
Yeah.
They're amazing girls.
No, wait, what?
Well, yeah. Then. Okay, can we because I see.
You're not his mother. Thank you.
Tell me when you're ready. I have a video of the Rebbe here. Maybe we'll come back in when they start. Oh, they start.
Wow. This is so heartwarming. This is a Hasidic melody, a niggin, and it touches the heart. I don't know which niggin this is, but I definitely know the tune.
I can ask
And-
them after, but the
Yeah.
Nigunim teacher is
Well-
making a finale tonight. They're singing all the Nigunim that they learned throughout the year together. So it was an
Wow.
optional thing, and they showed up to sing together. So beautiful. Sorry if it was
That's so-
breaking up. I don't know if it was
No,
good.
no, it's so beautiful. I was breaking up a little. That's why I paused
Okay.
the recording.
The recording.
But
Yeah,
it's beautiful, and you see how loved you are. So guys, this wasn't part of the program. I just want you to know. We don't do fundraising, but if anybody would like to give to this incredible high school, and I hope you'll come back to do a separate class besides with your husband about Beis Chana High School and your vision on education early, like for young adults, we would really appreciate it. So before we say our thank yous and before we ask any questions, I just would like to do a roll call to show us where everyone is from. Tonight we had with us 66 ladies from around the world, and many people wait for the recording after. So we have Long Beach, California, Crown Heights, Toronto, Charlotte, North Carolina, Melbourne, Australia, Chicago, Willington, Delaware, LA, California, Pittsburgh, Far Rockaway, Baltimore, Cedarhurst, Palm Springs, Muncie, New York, Minnesota, Borough Park, Brooklyn, Brunswick, New Jersey, Baltimore, Brooklyn Heights, Florida, Ottawa, Canada, and I'm sure many more places, but that's what we have that people sent in, which is amazing. Blown away. We have every type of Jew that tunes into the class. We also have some Gentiles that come onto the class, and we're so happy and honored that you have us. In fact, a woman reached out to me. We met, I believe, at an airport. I don't remember the whole meeting, but she told me that she's so inspired and this shapes her life, and she grew so much from these classes. So I was just so lucky that I was able to I was able to be part of that. We also had Williamsburg. I believe I said it, but someone just sent that in. So I want to just thank a couple of people for this class. Obviously, thank you, Rochel, our guest speaker, who really inspires everyone. And like, I only heard a snippet at the JLI, but I mean, there's so much more. We're gonna leave a little bit for a later. I want to thank the Rebbe and Hashem and the Rebbe for giving me this opportunity. This is incredible. I don't take it for granted. I mean, Zoom world's over, but every single week we have over 60 women that tune in, and every week it keeps growing and growing, but consistent, and new people. So I want to welcome everyone that tuned in tonight. And I want to thank my mentor and mashpia for the class, Shane D. Jacobson. Thank you so much for all your time and patience, and really, you do a lot behind the scenes. I want to thank my dear husband, who really helps with the tech of the class and is my cheerleader of this class, and really she keeps telling me to keep going, and really thankful to that. I want to say thank you to all the ambassadors of the class. Now, what is an ambassador? An ambassador is someone that shares the classes with your chats and your WhatsApp statuses and any, way, anybody that you can reach. And why should you become an ambassador today? It's because we want this to grow. And by you sharing, you receive the merits of sharing this class. I share the merits of this class. So if anyone would like to become an ambassador, please reach out to me. You know how to find me. Whoever sent you the link, please ask them to send me a message and you can tune in. I would like to thank all the sponsors of the class, and just really, I'm humbled and honored to be able to do this. It's awesome. So thank you guys for tuning in, and keep coming back, because we have so much more goodness for you coming your way. We had some questions. You answered many of them. I think we're going to leave the rest for next time, because the story, we had some videos that we wanted to share as well, but I think it's going to go hand in hand with how you and your husband met, his story. I mean, you mentioned he was, dealing with drugs, and he really was able to turn his life around, which is beyond. He inspires many, many people. You would never believe that he had such a journey. The divine providence of you guys meeting is I'm not going to give it away. I'm sure that there's so many more details, but when we talked with Rochel, she said that she had so many parts of the stories that she wasn't able to share on JLI, because you only had 20 minutes up there. And in 20 minutes, I gained so much. And I know you have so much more to share. So we are going to continue this, and we'll discuss it after the class. We'll put you on the calendar, because we need to hear from you and get inspired, because today we need inspiration so much, and you literally are light, and that's what you bring into this world. And it's incredible how everything just tied together, and seeing your parents and your in-laws, and how they they're so they're part of the community, and they're part of helping, and they're part of your mission. It's beyond, and I'm sure you're very grateful to that, because a lot of times when people choose to become religious and connect more to God, they don't have the support of their family. And that in itself is a huge gift. So that's awesome.
Absolutely.
I also want to say real fast, and then I'm going to, if you want to add anything, is that we are actually starting under this class, an umbrella of, I got a lot of requests for different learning, Shar HaBitachon. It's going to be a pre-recorded class. It's airing tomorrow evening. I have a WhatsApp chat now. It's in the chat box, which I'm going to put it back inside. I'm also going to link it on the recording that you can join. I would like everyone's welcome to join this chat. The reason why we're doing chats is because the broadcast is getting so big, and there's too much data, and I don't know if my phone can handle it anymore. So we transferred it to a WhatsApp chat. It's going to be given by Devorah Andruzier. She is she grew up on Schluach. She was sent by the Lubavitcher Rebbe. Her parents were sent by the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Lipsker and Chani Lipsker of Bell Harbor, Florida. She herself is a huge beacon of light and does so much shluchas every day. She got into learning Shahar B'Tachon because her son is in the IDF in Israel. And it used to be like a cool thing, but it's not so cool when, you know, your son is, you know, fighting in a war. And it's anxiety and it's nervousness. And she started learning Shahar B'Tachon. Today she teaches Shahar B'Tachon to many people. And I asked her if she can please consider teaching on our class so everyone can benefit the world. If you know an Aleph, you must teach an Aleph. And she knows many of the alphabet of the Aleph Bays. So we are going to be starting tomorrow night. Tune in. Really, it's going to be fabulous. And I'm looking forward. And it's going to be a recording. It's on the YouTube channel. Guys, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Chaya Mink, CHAYAMINK. That's Chaya Mink. I made it simple, like my maiden name, my nickname that I was always called Chaya Mink. But my married name is Ben Shimon, which I'm very grateful. Chaya Mink Ben Shimon, but my YouTube channel is so everyone can remember. And check it out, or you can join the WhatsApp chat to get it directly to your phone. It's going to be amazing in the darkness. It's dark times, but we can be the light in the darkness. And Shahar B'Tachon is incredible, and I highly recommend everyone to learn it. And I'm excited to continue learning it. And the Lubavitcher Rebbe was very into the Sefer. It's not by a Chabad rabbi. I forget his name who wrote it, but the Rebbe was very, 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 he encouraged many people to learn it when they were going through hard times. And he even encouraged people to learn it 3 times. So we are going to learn it once and listen to it. Some of you guys, heads up, that's what's coming your way. And we have incredible classes. We have over 110 classes recorded on our YouTube channel and so much more coming. So thank you everyone for tuning in. And I want to thank Rochel again for giving us your time. You weren't kidding when you were saying you're so busy while, you know, running a Chabad house, your beautiful family, you know, so much going on, plus a high school that you run. Blown away that you gave us your time. If anyone wants to donate to the high school, reach out. We're going to link it to the chat box. I highly recommend. I didn't know anything about Rochel, so many details are new for me. And thank you. And the world is lucky to have you.
Thank you so much. Oh, I'm not muted. Okay, just making sure. Thank you so much. And it's really a privilege to be part of this. Thank you for having me. It's wonderful. Thank you for putting your videos on, and thanks for listening to everyone.
Awesome. Good night. And
thank you.
Really, the world is, we're blessed.
Oh, and we should feel the brachas and see them in a revealed way in our lives. And Mashiach
Yeah.
now.
And I just want to say your brother Max, well, now he's called
Maish.
Yeah, he should have the most beautiful future together with his wife, and soon his, you know, his child beyond. And I'm so happy that it was happily ever after. Thank God. So
our number that kept being like a sign from Hashem during that time, we had the number 23 just kept coming up in all different places. And my parents started noticing like 23, 23, 23. And I just realized it's exactly 23 years from his surgery, and he's having his child 23 years later. It's like a really amazing, like, oh my gosh, this is Hashem's bracha is like still coming in the 23. So that's pretty cool.
Wow. They should keep flying in, not rolling in, flying in.
I mean, to everyone should have the brachas that they're looking for in their life.
Thank you, everyone. And everyone, remember, don't forget to keep saying Tehillim, giving tzedakah for the hostages and for our chayalim and the protection of all of us around the globe, and keep Hashem in your life and we'll be all right.
Amen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All the best.